31 craziest Pokemon evolutions. From Slugma evolving to be hotter than the sun, to this Pokemon that evolves into Kung Fu Panda. These are 31 craziest Pokemon evolutions ever. And I gotta start with a Pokemon that can evolve into 8 different forms. This cutie Eevee can evolve into Vaporeon, Jolteon, Flareon, Espeon, Umbreon, Leafeon, Glaceon, and Sylveon. You see, the thing that really makes these evolutions mind-blowing is not just the number of evolutions, but also the methods that trigger these evolutions. With each evolution, there is a unique requirement that involves evolutionary stones, time, affection, location, and even movesets. For instance, to evolve into Flareon, it has to be exposed to a fire stone. And for Swinub to get it to its final form, Mamoswine, it has to learn the move Ancient Power. Before I even get into that crazy requirement for evolution, let's talk about how this Pokemon went from this to this. Damn! Swinub went from a baby pig to a powerful mammoth from the Ice Age. And the only way it can get to that is for Swinub to evolve into Pillow-Swine, an even bigger baby pig. Then it has to learn Ancient Power to transform into Mamoswine. Speaking of ancient powers, we gotta talk about this dragon that was once a crybaby lizard with a burning tail. Before it evolved to Charizard, it spent 29 episodes as a Charmander, slowly learning and growing with Ash before it evolved into a Charmeleon, having been trusted to take on a whole stampede of Executor at once. You see, as it evolved, so did its emotions. 3 episodes later, Charmeleon evolved into Charizard, specifically to beat Aerodactyl's ass. After it evolved, it barely took Ash's instructions until that time in the Orange Islands, Ash spent an entire night defrosting it after it got frozen in a block of ice. All Ash had to do to gain back its respect was to remind it how much he really loved it. Charmander's glow up just reminds me of Mankey's evolution. Mankey really went from a mere troublesome monkey to Bassawan, the Basque Lord of the Woods. I mean, the signs were there from the beginning, and if you check its Pokédex, you'll agree with me. We are talking about an extremely ill-tempered Pokemon. It could be docile one moment and thrashing away the next. It's so angry that Primate can only evolve into Annihilate when leveled up after using Rage Fist 20 times. But Mankey's evolution line is not as impressive as Scyther's evolution because it can evolve into 2 different Pokemon with the right conditions, of course. You see, this Pokemon can go from being a Scythe to Scissors or Cleaver. That's so creative. Hats off to whoever came up with this. Scyther evolves into Scissor when traded while holding a metal coat. And in Pokemon Legends Arceus, it evolves into Cleaver when exposed to a black Augerite. Just like Scyther, Vulpix needs to be exposed to a Firestone to evolve into Ninetales. While in Alola, Ninetales evolves from Alolan Vulpix when exposed to an Ice Stone. Be it the Cantonian Vulpix or Alolan Vulpix, the fact that they evolve into a literal 9-tailed fox spirit is just crazy. But even crazier is Tynamo going from this white baby eel to a powerful blue electric eel. Electros is a strong and very cool Pokemon, but for Tynamo to get to Electros, it has to first evolve into Electric. Electric? I see what they did there. Then, Electric needs to be exposed to a Thunderstone to evolve into Electros. Sounds like an elite evolution, but still not as elite as a Pokemon that evolves to become hotter than our sun. I'm talking about Slugma's evolution to Magcargo. Yeah, Slugma is kinda cool, which is quite ironic for a Pokemon made out of magma, but Magcargo? Whew, Magcargo is so hot, it shouldn't exist. You see, Magcargo's body temperature is 18,000 degrees Fahrenheit, while the temperature of the surface of the sun is about 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that's one hot Pokemon. And speaking of hot, we gotta talk about Melodic. Damn, that's one fine, Pokemon. Melodic needs to give Magcargo tips on how to be hot without putting our planet in danger. But you see, Milotic wasn't always this beautiful. It used to look like this. And I kid you not, its pre-evolution, Phoebus, is the world's ugliest Pokemon. And if Xu is not careful, it might be second on that list. The thing that's saving it from being on that list is that it's so lovable. Sadly, I can't say the same for its evolution, Haxorus. Haxorus is quite kind but can be relentless when defending territory. Also, try not to touch its tusk. It will kill you, which is something Bunnelby could never do. Just look at how harmless this rabbit of a Pokemon looks. Now look at its evolution. This is who you should be afraid of, Driggersby. He went from looking like the Easter Bunny to a Halloween costume. But then the real Halloween costume is Gengar. And before it looked this evil, it used to be a floating head, which, if you take a closer look at, also looks kinda evil. You see, Ghastly was based on the Japanese yokai Sogenbai, the decapitated head of a monk whose head is doomed to wander the earth, consumed by fire. Ghastly was just a floating head before evolving to Haunter with floating hands. Then Gengar with a complete body to terrorize and scare people. Fun fact about this evolution, Ghastly is the only Pokemon that weighs exactly the same as its evolution, Haunter, with each of them weighing 0.2 pounds. Which can't be said of Mantike because it weighs 143 pounds, while Mantine, its evolution weighs 485 pounds. That's more than double the weight. But you know what intrigues me most about this evolution? The fact that spending time with the Remoraid schools is what eventually causes Mantike to evolve into Mantine. Even more intriguing is Geodude's evolution line. You see, I understand that Geodude in its first evolution, Graveler, are living rocks. But what I still don't understand is how its second evolution is a reptilian creature surrounded by a rock-like shell. How did flesh grow from his rocky body? It reminds me of how Inkay grows hair when it evolves into Malamar. It is one evil Pokemon because not only can it lure its prey by hypnotizing them, it also finishes off its prey with digestive fluids. The crazy thing about this evolution is in the game. You see, to evolve into Malamar, you'll have to literally think outside of the box. Inkay evolves into Malamar at level 30, but to trigger the evolution, Inkay must be leveled up, while the Nintendo 3DS is held upside down. That is really cool and creative, especially if you compare it with Tyrogue's Rogue evolution. See, Tyrogue is no Eevee, but it can evolve into one of 3 different Pokemon, depending on how it trains. If Tyrogue focuses on training to attack, it evolves into Bruce Lee. If it trains too much on defense, it evolves into Jackie Chan. And if it trains both equally, it evolves into this guy, Hitmontop. Still, Tyrogue's unique evolution is not as unique as Poipol's evolution. First, because it is the only Ultra Beast that can evolve. Secondly, the glow up is insane. But when it comes to the evolution of Happiny, the requirements in the game are even more insane. As it turns out, trainers must evolve Happiny while having it hold on to an oval stone during the daytime. Those are a lot of parameters to get right. Once that happens, it's just a matter of leveling up your Chansey with high enough friendship. Speaking of friendship, the creators of the game were really generous when it came to Nincada. It can evolve from 1 to 2 different Pokemon under the right circumstances, Ninjask and Shedinja. What makes Shedinja so special is that Nincada doesn't evolve into it, per se. Instead, Shedinja appears when Nincada turns into Ninjask as long as there's an available slot in the party and an empty Pokeball in the player's bag. And Nincada's unique evolution requirement reminds me of Rockruff. See, Rockruff has a handful of different evolutions that rely on the time of day, and in one case, a learned move. We got Lycanroc, the midday form that is obtained when leveling up during the day. Then there is the midnight form obtained during the night. And the dusk form, which is obtained when training a Rockruff with the move own tempo between 5 and 5:59 p.m. That's rare, but what's more rare is the fact that Shelmet can only evolve into a Selgor core when it has been traded for Carablast. On the other hand, it can only evolve into Excavalier when traded for a Shelmet. The concept behind this evolution is that Shelmet's helmet passes on to Carablast, which would explain Excavalier's armor-like design and steel typing. And because the helmet is lost, Axelgord then becomes angry, which would explain its pouting facial expression and crossed arms. Another creative idea worth a round of applause. And the glow-up that I can't stop clapping for is Bagon's. Bagon really went from baby dragon with a big head unable to fly to I don't even know what to call this. A dragon covered in a shell to a force to be reckoned with. And the crazy thing that influences the cells needed to help Bagon evolve is its habit of head bashing and believing in itself. But not all Pokemon can bash their head to evolve. Some just have to be themselves. Just like Burmy, whose evolution condition varies depending on its gender. Burmy has 2 final evolutions. A male Burmy evolves into a Mothim, while a female one evolves into Wormadam. Did you know that the final evolution of the fire starters always turns out bipedal? Yup, it doesn't matter how many legs its pre-evolution had. And such is the case with Litten's final evolution, Incineroar. Litten evolved into Torracat, whose design made sense as a step up from Litten, but Incineroar took the change a bit too far to look natural. And speaking of taking things too far, Cosmog took its weight too far after evolution. Cosmog weighs 0.2 pounds. But after it evolves to Cosmoem, it puts on an extra 2,204.2 pounds. What's crazy is it loses a lot of that weight when it evolves into either Solgaleo or Lunala. It's almost similar to the way Pancham evolves from a weak baby panda into a very powerful panda that looks like a crossbreed of Kung Fu Panda and King Kong. Even the leaf in its mouth evolves, just like how the tail on Ipom duplicates when it evolves into Ambipom, and how Elekid goes from being the plug to being a mob boss. Just take a look at this insane transformation. Elekid really took the word glow up personally, because it went from stealing electricity to being able to generate 20,000 volts of power. And we can't talk about volts of power without talking about the evolution line of Pikachu that started with Pichu. Yup, Pichu literally has the lowest base stat total of all electric type Pokemon. But when evolved into Raichu, it can generate 10,000 volts. Not only electricity, it also looks way better. Just peep that Thundertail and curly ears. What you shouldn't peep is Melton, because how does it go from being the smallest mythical Pokemon to being the heaviest mythical Pokemon? This has got to be the craziest evolution on this list because of how menacing it looks. But I bet it doesn't look as menacing as these 24 Pokemon that killed someone. Catch 'em all!